Hi everyone, I'm Rincey and this is Rincey Reads. I was recently tagged by Olive over at a book Olive in the Bookish Contradictions tag, and this seems like a lot of fun. I don't do a lot of tags, but I was thinking about what my answers would be. I went through my Goodreads profile, and I think I have some fun answers. So without further ado, let's just jump into the questions. Question 1. I love this genre, but I didn't love this book. So this is probably one of the ones that I had a harder time with just because I wouldn't say that there's one specific genre that I always love. I dip into a little bit of everything, and I could have done something like literary fiction, but there's honestly a lot of literary fiction I don't like. And I was thinking maybe contemporary or historical, something along those lines. But I decided to do mysteries for this one. There's 2 books I actually picked for this because I couldn't figure out which one I wanted to talk about. The first one is Luckiest Girl Alive, which I read a number of years ago when it was pretty recently out, and I just remember this one getting so much hype, everyone talking about this one. I was like, you know what, I really enjoy thrillers, so let me check this one out. I couldn't get through it. I realized that I didn't care about privileged white people problems, rich white people problems. That's not a genre or subgenre within the thriller world that I tend to enjoy. And so I have a really hard time with stuff like that. And so I knew that there was a twist, and I was like, maybe I could make it to that point, but I never did. And then one of my friends read the book and she told me what the twist was and all this stuff. And I was just like, okay, that's not bad, but I don't know if reading it was going to be worth it for me. So I just DNF'd it. The second book is Mr. Churchill's Secretary, which is a pretty popular historical fiction mystery series. It's the first book in a series. It takes place in 1940s England, and, it's kind of dealing with World War II stuff and all of that stuff. I just found it to be a really mad book. I remember when I was reading this, I didn't enjoy my experience with it. The mystery seemed really basic. The characters weren't super compelling. I found that it was weirdly anachronistic in certain ways. It just felt too modern, despite the fact that it was supposed to be taking place in the 1940s. It just felt really flat. And I mean, if you're someone who's a super fan of the genre and loves everything about it, then maybe you would like this one, but I just knew it wasn't for me. Also, I have a slight bias towards World War II fiction related stuff just because I feel it's oversaturated, even though this isn't perfectly within that genre. It felt close enough that I was just meh, not for me. I'm not going to continue on with the series. Question number 2 is, I rarely read this genre, but I loved this book. And for me, that answer is The Devil All the Time by Donald Ray Pollock. This is, I think, a horror novel. This is a book that is really dark and really violent. And I never can usually handle books like this. It's really creepy. I do sometimes enjoy stories about serial killers just because I think reading things from that perspective can be really intriguing. But this book is the opposite end of what I generally read. But I remember just randomly picking this one up at a Barnes and Noble and trying the first couple pages and being I really like this writing style. And then I devoured it and it gave this 5 stars. And I always felt really uncomfortable telling people that this was my favorite book the year that I read it, just because it's so dark and disturbing. And it's, again, just the exact opposite of me, but I just found it to be so compelling. You could make the argument that this is a horror thriller book, and so maybe the thriller aspect of it was what wrote me in, which I could potentially see, but I almost never read horror, and it's really rare that I would read a horror book and also adore it. But I did. I loved it despite, or maybe because of, how dark and disturbing it was. Question 3 is, I love this trope, but I didn't like this book. For this one, I have The Ancient Nine. This is a mystery thriller book again, but the reason why I picked this one up is because it takes place at Harvard, and you are following a character who is getting initiated into a secret society, and he notices that some suspicious things are going on. And this has all of these elements that I thought I would enjoy. I love campus stories, so whether it take place at a university or a private school or something along those lines. I love secret society books. I love especially that sort of beginning stages of those where the main character's learning about the school and learning about the secret society and all of that stuff. But I did not enjoy my experience with this book. One, the author of this book went to Harvard, and so you could tell that he was just info dumping what he knew about Harvard into that book, as if to say look at me, I know what Harvard is because I've been there. 2, you could also tell that this was a book written by a man because there were barely any female characters in this book. I think there were a total of 2, maybe 3 speaking roles given to women, and most of those women are just like either love interests or like women used for sex and things like that, which, you know, not great. And yeah, I just remember like I hated my experience reading this book because it just felt extremely narrowly focused and sexist and things like that. There was also like sections where you were following the main character as he like practiced basketball for the basketball team. I was like, none of this has to do with anything. So I remember like just really skimming through the book to figure out what the answers were, and it wasn't even that interesting. It was very obvious. I was just really disappointed with my experience with that book, especially as someone who's always has an eye out for like campus novels or secret society books and things along those lines. For number 4, I hate this trope, but I love this book. And for this one, I don't have a specific trope. It's more like a book style or writing style. Anyone who watches my videos knows I say this all the time. I don't enjoy multiple POV books. And so I have 2 answers here where these were both books where I saw that they were multiple POVs and I was slightly hesitant, but I ended up absolutely adoring them. The first one is Black Sun by Rebecca Roanhorse. This is 100% a book that took me by surprise, not only because it's multiple POVs, but also because it's a fantasy book, and I generally don't go for either of those things, but this was one of those books where every single point of view made sense, was compelling. I enjoyed all of these characters. I wanted to know what was going to happen to all of them, and I understood the purpose behind all of those points of views, which is a thing that I have a hard time with. Either one of the characters is extremely compelling and I wish I was just following them, or there's one character who's super not compelling and I don't want to hear anything from their point of view, or I'm just like not really sure what the point of all of these different points of views are. And I think especially with like fantasy, when it's a first book in a series, sometimes it's hard to know why you have multiple points of views until really late in the game or really late in the series and things like that, because they become more important later on. But with this one, not at all. Like from the beginning, Rebecca Roanhorse creates really interesting characters that you want to know what happens to them, especially because she creates this element of a countdown to a specific point in time, and they're all like headed to this event. And so yeah, this was one of those books where everything about this took me by surprise. The other one is kind of the same idea but a little bit of a play, and that is Homegoing by Yeah Jessie. Again, every chapter in this book is told from a different character's point of view, but it's the fact that all of these stories are linked to each other and you're following this family chronologically down to modern day, and you see sort of the connections between all of the different characters and things like that that makes this work so well. Like the fact that every chapter is from a different character's point of view would normally turn me off because there's not enough time to like establish who they are, where they're at, why we should care about them, what's going on with them, all of this stuff. But the way Jessie structures this book and writes about these characters, they're all linked stories. So you kind of know a little bit about them because you might have either gotten a glimpse of them as a child, or you might have understood their family history to understand the circumstances that they're in now. And it's just masterfully done. This is literally a book I recommend to everyone. It's like there's no one in the world who I wouldn't hand Homegoing to unless you just literally don't read fiction books. This is masterful and 100% the exception to the rule of I don't enjoy multiple POV books. Question 5, I love this author, but I didn't enjoy this book. And this is one where it's not that hard for me to find examples of this. I think it's partially because like I read a lot of people's debuts, or I'll read like one book in a series or one book by an author and really love it, and then I'll go to pick up something else by them, and then I don't really love it. It's not hard for me to find someone who's I read a book, really enjoyed it, pick up another book by them, didn't enjoy their book. There's a lot of examples of that out there. But for this one, I tried to pick an author where I've enjoyed a lot of their books, and then there were like some that were just complete duds for me. And for me, that's Ann Patchett. What I'm realizing is that I enjoy Ann Patchett's like later works because I think that she has gotten significantly stronger as a writer as she has continued on in her writing career. It's not so much that her early books are absolutely terrible, like unreadable or anything along those lines. There's a reason why she's published and she's doing well for herself. But I just think that like because they're earlier works, they're less polished. And so I don't find them as compelling. And so I've read The Patron Saint of Liars and I didn't really enjoy that one. I think I tried to read Truth and Beauty and I couldn't get through it or something along those lines, or I started and I just could tell it wasn't working for me, so I put it down. But I've like really, really enjoyed a lot of her books, like Bel Canto. This is a story of a happy marriage, like Dutch House. I just read her recent essay collection and raved about it. She's a writer who I really, really enjoy. And so like I picked up a couple of her books, really enjoyed them. Picked up a couple of her backlist, didn't enjoy those. And so now I'm back to just reading the recent stuff that she's putting out, and I'm really enjoying those as well. So yeah, Ann Patchett is definitely a writer where, for me, she's definitely grown over time as a writer, and you can see it, and so therefore it's harder for me to now go back and read her older stuff. Number 6 is, I previously disliked a book by this author, but I loved this book. And so this one is harder for me to pinpoint for a different reason, in the fact that like usually when I don't like a book by an author, I really go out to seek out another book by them and give them another chance. You know, there's too many books to read in too little time. Like, why am I going to try an author who's disappointed me before? But there is one that I found, and that is Jose Saramago. So the first book I ever read by him was Skylight, which came out in 2014, and I read it as a part of this like book club that Book Riot was testing out and things like that. I was completely unimpressed by it. Like, it was fine. It was an 3-star experience, I think, but I honestly could not tell you anything about that book. It just didn't leave an impact on me. However, I knew that everyone loves his book Blindness, and like it's a bestseller and all of these different things. And so eventually I came across a used copy of that book, and I was like, all right, I'll just give it a try. And I loved it. It's not an easy book to read because of the formatting and things like that, but the story in and of itself is amazing and beautiful and should be read by anyone who enjoys sort of like a dystopian or apocalyptic sort of stuff, just because of the darkness that's in there, as well as the social commentary that's in there, that I think fans of those will enjoy. I'm not surprised that I gave this author another chance, because again, everyone raves about this book, but usually I don't do that. For number 7, I love this cover, but I didn't like this book. And there's a lot of answers I could give for this one. I think the one that I'll answer here is 50 Words for Rain by Asha Lemy. And this is a book that I picked up because of the cover. Like, I saw the cover on my library's website, like I was browsing its ebook section, and I saw this cover and I was like, oh, this is really pretty. And I read the synopsis, and then I was like, oh, this sounds potentially interesting. And so I checked it out. I found it to be just utterly disappointing. Just not for me. And finally, number 8 is, I don't like this cover, but I love this book. And for this, I think it mostly comes down to having older editions of books that have not been re-released into newer, in my opinion, better styles. So the first one that I thought of was Gloria Naylor's Mama Day. Just like this specific style of book is not my favorite thing. This one was originally published in the 80s? Yeah. 1988, and it definitely has that like style, but like the thing is like I have an edition of Bailey's Cafe that's kind of similar to this, but it makes more sense. I think it's just like the hands with the lightning bolts. Like, this is a complicated book, and so I could imagine that the designer of this cover didn't really know what to do with it, because I also wouldn't know how to market this book, because it's not a simple, straightforward plot with clear elements that you can pull out to highlight what this book is about. So this is not like an easy book to create a cover for, but I feel like Gloria Naylor deserves better at this point. And then I do have a bonus entry for this. But I also thought of this one as well. And speaking of Ann Patchett, it's Bel Canto, which, like I said earlier, I love this book, but I don't love this cover. This is one where the cover makes sense, but this design just doesn't do anything for me. You have like this crowd of people nicely dressed up, which makes sense for the sake of the story. And you have like part of a music note in gold, and like I'm assuming this is supposed to be like the lines for music and stuff like that. So it like kind of makes sense, but it just like from a distance, it doesn't really catch your eye. The colors are kind of weird to me. Like, I want these ideas, but done in a different way, basically. So yeah, let's give Bel Canto a better cover. Like, let's release some Ann Patchett books with better covers. They did it with State of Wonder. It got like a Harper Perennial re-release, which I bought that version because I enjoyed it so much. So let's do it for Bel Canto too. So yeah, those are my answers for the Bookish Contradictions tag. Feel free to leave any comments or disagreements that you might have down in the comment section below. I almost said in the description below. Y'all don't have access to that. Or if you have any questions or you want me to expand upon any of my opinions here, feel free to ask that as well. So yeah, that's all I have for now, and thanks for watching.